Hi guys, it's Debbie and welcome back. This time while waiting for the Oscars. These are my predictions about who will win and also some of my personal thoughts on who I personally think should win, who I would prefer to win. And of course, remember to leave a comment down below with your picks and predictions. As every year, there are a handful of titles dominating the award season. Last year, Dune and The Power of the Dog, the previous year, Nomadland and Mank. Before that, it was Joker and Parasite. And this year's big titles are Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, The Banshees of Inisherin. You'll see these names pop up over and over again as we cover the various categories. These films are statistically more likely to win due to previous awards ceremony, but let's not forget that there are many more lesser known films and creators that have been nominated. Now let's kick off with the categories most people are interested in. Let's start off with Best Picture, Best Film. For this we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness and Women Talking. Most people are going all in on Everything Everywhere All at Once. All in meaning not only that it will win Best Picture, but that it will just sweep everything. Now this is not the video for me to go and do an in-depth analysis on Everything Everywhere All at Once, but my opinion is that it is a great fun story, but it's not an Oscar movie. I can understand the more technical categories, the editing, the production design, but I just can't force myself to say that this is superior to masterpieces like The Fabelmans or The Banshees of Inisherin, or even Elvis. I think many people have been confusing their own personal taste and what actually wins the awards. Everything Everywhere All at Once is the perfect film to advertise everywhere, to make fun memes and quotes and videos, and while the creators have won important awards like the DGA, the film didn't win at major awards like the Golden Globes or the BAFTAs, and it tended to win at more younger oriented awards like the SAG Awards, broadcast on Netflix with skits and swearing and Jen Ortega, which is all fine. I love a great fun movie. But then you have Oscar-worthy masterpieces like Steven Spielberg's touching portrayal of his family, which is a recurring motif in his previous works, The Banshees of Inisherin's beautiful portrayal of friendship, Elvis's redemption story. And don't forget, many Oscar voters are on the older side, so don't underestimate the amount of votes films like Top Gun or All Quiet on the Western Front can obtain. We don't officially know who the Academy voters are, but if we think the majority of them are previous Oscar winners, statistically speaking, we're talking of an overwhelming majority of over 60-year-old white men. Not exactly the demographic that statistically would enjoy the hot dog fingers or Rakakuni jokes. So again, statistically at the moment, Everything Everywhere All at Once seems the most likely to win, but being a comedy, having already lost nearly all awards at the BAFTAs and Golden Globes, being made by two very young and not too experienced directors with a very young oriented plot, we could see other films rising. The same goes for the directors category, in which again we have more or less the same names. Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin, the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. Now I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I don't think the Daniels are going to win, and I personally don't think they should win. And if the defense for their work is that it is a dark comedy rich in social satire with meaningful hidden messages and unconventional topics, why aren't we talking about Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness?
This is really bad.
I, as many other people, think that Steven Spielberg should and will win for this category, not only to reward him in general for the impact he has had on the film industry, think that Ke Huy Quan probably wouldn't be where he is now if not for Spielberg, but because The Fabelmans really is a masterpiece of filmmaking. At first it could just be misinterpreted as a nod to cinema, something which we have seen many times, even recently with films like Paolo Sorrentino's The Hand of God. But in reality it's a much deeper family story in which all of us can find something to identify with. And also it's not Spielberg just showing his origin story before becoming this really successful director, sort of patting himself on the shoulder. Because I won't spoil the film if you haven't seen it yet, but it touches some dark topics which even put his own family in a negative spotlight. I don't know who's going to announce the category on Oscar night, but I sure would like to see Spielberg with another photo with two statues like at the Golden Globes with Tarantino's boxing ring announcement.
And the Golden Globe goes to Mr. Spielberg. Step right up here.
Now let's move on to the acting categories. For the gents, we have Austin Butler for Elvis, Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Paul Mescal for After Sun, and Bill Nighy for Living. I highly doubt that smaller films like After Sun or Living are going to win here. I think it's a big race between Farrell, Fraser and Butler, and I think the winner is going to be Austin Butler. Although he is very young and even new to the award scene and to the industry in general, his performance ticks off all the boxes Academy voters usually love. An all-American story of a star rising from nothing, he portrayed Elvis in all the stages of his life, through his family troubles, love story, addictions, right to the end of his majestic and tormented life. Butler spent years perfecting the character and the accent to the point that if he wins, he will definitely accept the award with the Elvis accent as he did at the Golden Globes.
Oh man, all my words are leaving me.
And if you weigh in all of this, Brendan Fraser's performance is very limited due to the limitations of his character. I would also be happy if Colin Farrell won. The Banshees of Inisherin is a very simple story, a simple premise, which is based on superb acting and dialogues. Instead, for Best Actresses, we have Cate Blanchett for Tar, Ana de Armas for Blonde, Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie, Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. This category has been plagued with criticism, nonsensical criticism, I would say. On one hand, we have criticism for Michelle Williams' nomination as lead, while we're completely ignoring the fact that Ana de Armas probably shouldn't have even been nominated in the first place, and Andrea Riseborough's PR team copy-pasting the description of the film to get in more votes. Anyway, I think the winner here will be Cate Blanchett for Tar. She has been sweeping in awards since the Venice Film Festival months ago, and I don't think she'll stop. I would also be very pleased if Michelle Williams won for her emotionally charged portrayal of a loving but also tormented mother in The Fabelmans. It's unlikely, but remember, this would be her 5th Oscar nomination without ever winning. Supporting actors. Now, this is the category that made me the saddest, as nobody is talking about the nominees except for Ke Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think he's going to win, and I agree he probably should win. After all, he had to portray different versions of himself with different personalities, ways of speaking. But why is nobody talking about Brendan Gleeson, about Brian Tyree Henry, Judd Hirsch? It's as if they were never nominated in the first place. For supporting actresses, instead, we have Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Hong Chau for The Whale, Kerry Condon for The Banshees, and both Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Until a few weeks ago, I wasn't really sure who would win. I hadn't seen The Whale yet, and the talk was all about Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I think it's going to be Kerry Condon, mostly for exclusion, because I don't think Hong Chau or Stephanie Hsu are going to get it. Jamie Lee Curtis's character isn't exactly Oscar friendly, so that leaves out Kerry Condon and Angela Bassett. It could be either of them, but we all know that superhero films are loved all year round except at awards season. So that leaves out Kerry Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin. Then we have original and adapted screenplay. To be honest, I am stepping into foreign land with adapted screenplay. I have very little knowledge about the original works on which these nominees are based. The nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, Living, Top Gun Maverick, and Women Talking. I'm not too familiar with the original material on which these works are based, but after all the awards Women Talking has been winning, it looks like it will win the Oscar, but I can't say too much about it. I'm not going to pretend I read the original novel. I'm going again on those famous statistics. Best Original Screenplay is very interesting. Again, we have the same big 5. The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. Now here one would think that just coming up with the craziest story equals Best Story, thus equaling an award, so probably Everything Everywhere All at Once. But then again, even Triangle of Sadness is pretty deranged. But screenplay is much more than that. It's inventing characters, programming their every mood, interaction, line. So think of films like The Banshees of Inisherin, which is totally based on the dialogues and character arc, or Tar, which is the creation of a character in such a believable manner that people have been wondering and Googling whether Lydia Tar was actually a real person. And think of The Fabelmans, it's based on real characters, but we know this as super movie lovers who know all the ins and outs of these films. But to the general movie-going audience, they could be anybody, and Spielberg made them real and believable and had people crying their eyes out. Honestly, this is a tough category. I really don't know in which direction to point my finger. I think instead a category about which we're all pretty sure of at the moment is Best Animated Feature. I actually find it hilarious that this year we had one of the worst Pinocchio films ever made and one of the best Pinocchio films ever made. But let's get to the nominees first. The nominees are Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast and Turning Red. I knew Turning Red was going to be nominated last year as soon as it was released, even with all the criticism surrounding its themes. For example, people are saying it's too adult for the protagonist's age and then it's all a period metaphor, but I knew it was the kind of Disney film that always lands on the Oscar list. Disney, Pixar, they dominate this category. But I'm sure Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is going to win this year. It's a beautiful, heartbreaking and heartwarming rendition of the classic story, and I'll leave this category with this quote by the director.
Because animation is cinema. Animation is not a genre for kids, it's a medium.
Moving on to Best International Feature Film, I think this category is also quite locked at the moment, with All Quiet on the Western Front basically winning everything where it's nominated. The other nominees are Argentina 1985, Close, EO and The Quiet Girl. Some have even argued that because of how much All Quiet on the Western Front is winning and its surprise wins at the BAFTAs, it could have been a potential threat in the director's category, but in the end Andrew Berger wasn't even nominated. Now, all of that being said, we're all kind of forgetting that Argentina 1985 one of the Golden Globes, so question mark on that. Then we have Best Original Score, which is a tough one because we have two huge contenders here. The nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. I really loved Justin Hurwitz's score on Babylon. It's probably one of the few things I liked about that film. But we also have the near record holder John Williams concluding his career with his score for The Fabelmans after 53 nominations at the Oscars. I'm not sure if they're just going to wave goodbye to him after such an immense career. Instead, for Best Original Song, I think it will go to Natu Natu in RRR. I remember when I watched that film the first time, I just kept on replaying that dance-off scene because it was so fun.
Do you know? Not to.
The other nominees are Tell It Like a Woman, Top Gun Maverick, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm actually surprised there's not a huge talk about Lady Gaga's song for Top Gun Maverick, but it might also be because Top Gun was released basically a whole year ago, while Rihanna's name, she is nominated for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, was all over socials after performing at the Super Bowl. See, the thing about Top Gun is that it's going to win something. It's not going to go home empty-handed. Maybe not Best Picture, but when it comes to more technical categories like sound and editing, I can see it winning here. For sound, it's up against All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, and Elvis, where its biggest competitor would probably be All Quiet on the Western Front. While for Best Editing, it would be up against The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Tar. Here, its biggest competitor would be Everything Everywhere All at Once, but in the past, the Academy has given a lot of love to the editing in stories focusing on music. Sound of Metal, Bohemian Rhapsody, Whiplash all won it in recent years, with also nominations for La La Land, Tick Tick Boom, so Tar could be a surprise here. Elvis also has some wild editing, but wild doesn't necessarily mean good. We know Baz Luhrmann loves to go all in on his films. They all feel like when you start to learn using an editing program and you start chucking in all sorts of different effects just because you can.
Generally, I like it.
Then Best Cinematography is a very interesting competition this year because on the one hand we have great films with very little known cinematographers like All Quiet on the Western Front, and then we have films that have been a bit snubbed this year like Bardo and Empire of the Light, but with mammoth cinematographers like 16 times nominee Roger Deakins or Darius Khondji, who has worked on Seven, The Beach, The Lost City of Z, Panic Room, Uncut Gems. So this is a really good and interesting competition. It's hard not to think of Roger Deakins, of course, for Emperor of Light, but it could go to Tar with its plane of lights and shadows, the apartment shots, and then again All Quiet on the Western Front. The only one I'm not thinking about is Elvis because it's just too much like the editing. Production design is also interesting. A few years ago, I used to struggle to wrap my head around what production design actually meant, as it just seemed the crazier you went, the more you would win. Alice in Wonderland, The Great Gatsby, Sweeney Todd, Moulin Rouge. I now understand it and understand what a more comprehensive award it is, but still, if we do look at the past winners, they are often the most over the top out of the nominees. La La Land, Mad Max Fury Road, Dune, The Grand Budapest Hotel. The more the film drags you into that world, the more over the top and immersive it is, the more it wins. So following that theory, Babylon or Elvis should win. The other nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Fabelmans. Again, I think I would be pleased with Elvis, as the film literally covers decades of the protagonist's life. It conveys the craziness of his life and all the different stages of wealth, the different houses, hotels, stages, TV sets. neighborhoods, and Elvis could also win for best costume design, where it's up against Babylon, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Now, as I was saying earlier, I can see Babylon as a big competitor to Elvis in regards to general production design, but I wouldn't say the costumes were the highlight of the film. Everything Everywhere All at Once also showcased an impressive costume department, as each character changes costume multiple times, often within the same scene, but I think the Academy might go for the realism of Elvis. And Elvis could also win for best makeup and hairstyling. It's up against All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and The Whale. Now, a few weeks ago, I would have leaned more towards The Whale for makeup and hairstyling, but after watching the film, it is still impressive, but to be honest, you can tell it's a fat suit. I still haven't understood why everybody's criticizing Fraser for wearing a fat suit. What was he supposed to do, gain all the weight and risk his life for the role? The only reason why I would see people hesitating on Elvis is because of Tom Hanks's character. He looks more like Colin Farrell as Penguin in The Batman.
That is what I do.
And for best visual effects, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun: Maverick. For how much I don't like the Avatar films, yes, they're an incredible feat of computer imagery. We have been shown this and told it 7 billion times, and yes, it will win. For the sake of fairness, I will not be talking about documentaries or short films. Unfortunately, I have seen a grand total of 0 of these. It's very sad, but I'm sure that in the next months I will be able to cross them off the watch list. And I would love to hear what you think about the nominees, who you think will win, who you think deserves to win, what I thought about all these films. Let me know everything with a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.